Hello everybody, my name is Andrea Wiles. I'm a Beef and Sheep Extension Officer in Charleville. So I'm going to run you through a lick label. If you looked at this, would you be able to tell me if it is an energy supplement or a protein supplement? How much protein or energy stock would get from this lick each day? If it would suit your stock and season? If not, keep listening. Feeding can be an expensive exercise, but sometimes a more expensive lick may be more economic. Nutrition is all about supply and demand. Here we're going to talk about the supply in terms of understanding what your supplement might provide. But to really know if your lick is suitable, you also need to understand the supply from the pasture and the demands of your stock. So we will start with protein. Sometimes there are many types of protein listed, sometimes only one or two. It is important to understand the differences so that you can work out how much protein your stock will get from the lick and then know if it is meeting the gap you are trying to fill. Knowing if crude protein or urea is the main source of protein is also useful to work out the most cost-effective way to feed for what you are trying to achieve. Total protein or total crude protein is the sum of equivalent crude protein and crude protein. In this lick, there is 34% equivalent crude protein and 16% crude protein, which together add up to the total crude protein of 50%. Equivalent crude protein comes from nitrogen sources and is not a true protein. This can come from things like urea or Gran-Am. It is a calculated equivalent based on the amount of nitrogen in an ingredient. The equivalent crude protein for urea is 287%. In other words, 1 gram of urea is the equivalent of 2.87 grams of crude protein. Remember this number because we'll talk about it a bit. In this lick, if we multiply 12% urea by 287% or 2.87, we get 34%. So all of the equivalent crude protein in this lick is made up by urea. If there was a difference, another nitrogen source might be contributing, such as Gran-Am. The calculated equivalent for Gran-Am is 126%, so you would do the same sums as for urea using 1.26 instead of 2.87. Crude protein is the level of true protein in the supplement. It comes from organic sources, such as meals or grains. In this case, it contributes 16% to the total crude protein. Sometimes you'll see the true protein source listed, sometimes not. You can find out the crude protein content of different feeds, such as cottonseed meal or soybean meal, on the Future Beef website. So let's talk about minerals. There are two categories of minerals: macrominerals and microminerals. In this example, the macrominerals listed are calcium and phosphorus. On supplement labels, think big. Macrominerals should be listed as a percentage or grams per kilogram. If you see macrominerals listed as milligrams per kilogram, it is very unlikely there will be sufficient quantities in the supplement to meet the requirements. For microminerals, think mini. They will be listed on the label as milligrams per kilogram. Understanding minerals is complicated, and it is important that they balance in the lick as well as with the pasture stock have access to. When thinking about minerals, the most important thing to remember is about primary limiting nutrients. Stock need their requirements for energy, protein and phosphorus to be met before they will get a benefit from supplementing other minerals. Mineral deficiencies other than phosphorus are usually rare and limited to certain areas. So concentrate on energy, protein and phosphorus first. The last thing on this label is energy, listed as 5 megajoules metabolizable energy per kilogram. But sometimes it isn't even listed on a dry lick. This is because dry licks are not energy supplements. Cattle might consume 50 to 500 grams of a dry lick, but they will not consume enough to provide a substantial amount of energy unless it has a very high protein meal content, for example 80% or more. In the next video, we're going to do the actual sums. Keep watching to see how to know what your stock are actually getting out of your lick.